this is Diane. Welcome to Biters. Why is someone who is so clearly not the alpha holding the badass shotgun?
And this is Marnell. And remember what the dormouse said. Feed your head. It's exactly what I thought.
Oh
when
my god,
was
that is
that
hilarious. That is totally hilarious. You win. All right.
But Negan had some good lines this episode.
He did.
And we are podcasting season 10, episode 14, Look at the Flowers.
Which is like, this is the penultimate episode because next episode is the season finale.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be.
Right. No, and we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But yeah, season 15 is going to be the end of Walking Dead for a while.
Episode 15.
Did I say 16? I meant to say 15.
You said... Listen to her.
Oh my god, what did I say? I made a double margarita
15.
and I'm like a quarter of the way into it. This is going to get bad.
I'm 2/3 of the way through a bottle of white wine, so here we go.
Yeah, well, you can stomach your liquor better than I can. My liver's been screaming from the last 2 weeks in quarantine. Which, by the way, I am COVID negative as of this moment in time. Now, I'm going back to work tomorrow, so that could change rapidly. But I did finally get my test back. Pro tip, if you need to be tested and you are part of a high-risk group, talk to your primary care provider about getting expedited testing because you're high risk. So my PCP and I didn't know about that, and it took like 12 days to get the result back.
You were basically out of quarantine by the time you got your test back because you had quarantined for 2 weeks.
Pretty much. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow.
I don't think that was a thing 2 weeks ago.
I don't think it was either.
Yeah, when this hit and we started testing, I don't think it was like, oh, maybe we should expedite the healthcare workers. It was just they were taking them as they came in. And so now I think they are prioritizing certain tests.
Right, and they're prioritizing people who are high risk. So again, that's probably going to vary somewhat from state to state, but if you're listening to us and you're not in Alaska, or if you are in Alaska for that matter, and you're high risk, talk to your primary care provider about whether or not you can get the test expedited. Because, I just spent 2 weeks on the beach for nothing. And it wasn't a beach, let me tell ya.
Oh, life wasn't a beach.
It was not. All right, my girl, you liked it better than I did, so give us your rating.
I rated it a 4.6 hit albums.
You definitely liked it better than I did.
I liked it better.
So I thought of you because when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh, this is kind of middle booky. And I rated it a 4.2. But on rewatch, it lost 0.4. So my rating is 3.8 Pete Townsend moves out of 5.
Wow. Dang. So we take a 45-minute show and we're going to talk for the next 2 hours.
And we apologize to you now. You can fast forward to like the last 15 minutes. We'll try not to talk about COVID-19 quite as much as we did last time, although I do have a few things in Housewives Corner.
Yes, I have a corrections corner.
Yes, I have that written down. I'm going to let you do it, but I have it written down. All right, so the numbers, of course, it's too early to have numbers for this episode, which was called Look at the Flowers, but there were numbers for last week, What We Become, which was the Michonne Bottle episode, and it was up from 3.49 million the week before to 3.66 million last week. And so I'm wondering, was it curiosity about Michonne's send-off, or are we starting to see some number changes because people are starting to hunker down? Or is it both?
Both.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. And, we might actually see some numbers uptick for this episode and next episode because AMC released the entire season streaming for free.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of people who usually maybe just buy a couple of weeks pass or whatever, a 1 month pass to AMC to binge the whole thing once it's done, might actually start watching and then catch up this week.
I did see on Kirk's Twitter feed that he actually is getting caught back up. He kind of lagged behind for a while. And I talked to our former sister-in-law last night, and so she is we don't talk about her very much, but I still consider her a sister. She's actually a teacher in Oregon State, and she's now like doing lessons from home and helping other teachers put together lessons from home. So she's been super busy, actually. And she did say last night that she was making time in her otherwise crazy schedule for The Walking Dead.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people binging a lot of stuff like, oh, I don't know, Tiger King on Netflix.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in Housewives Housekeeping, okay? Because I'm curious to know what you have to say. Because I haven't watched it yet. All right, so the title, so it was clearly a reference to The Grove. And of course, Alpha did use the look at the flowers line. But the thing that I'll say about it is I actually really liked the way that Alpha tormented Carol with the names of all of the children specifically.
Yes.
Like, she named Sophia, Lizzie, Mika, and Henry.
Yep.
And I thought that was one of the more effective things that Alpha's ghost did when tormenting Carol.
Yes, we will definitely get into that.
Okay. Anything else about the title?
No, these last couple of episodes, their titles have been pretty on the nose. So I don't think there's too much more to read into that.
I appreciated the title. It made me expect more than what happened, and I'll talk about that a little bit when I get to my bad.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, our writer is someone that we talked about quite a bit. She is responsible for 17 episodes of The Walking Dead, including Internment, which is probably my all-time favorite episode, aside from maybe Vatos and the series premiere. And that was Herschel's hero episode in season 4. And Channing Powell has been with the series since 2013.
Right.
She's got writer credits for 3 other things, none of which are familiar to me. So there's a thing called The Feed, a thing called White Collar, and then a short that she did called Good News, Oklahoma.
So White Collar has been one that's kind of been on the fringes of my watch list for a while, but yeah.
Shouldn't we all be getting to our watch list now?
They just keep coming out with awesome stuff like the Tiger King.
Oh my god, that's so funny. All right, the director is Daisy von Scherler-Mayer. I think I slaughtered her name the last time I said it too. So she's done 2 Walking Dead episodes, this one and The Bridge, which was episode 2 of season 9. Mm-hmm. And then she also did 2 episodes of Fear, Leave What You Don't, and Just in Case, which were both in season 4, which we both really liked.
Yes. Just in Case was a great episode.
Yes. Yes, it was. I agree. And she's also worked on AMC's Halt and Catch Fire, which we've talked about her kind of tie over into AMC with that. She has worked on Orange is the New Black, Nurse Jackie, Bosch, all of which are things that I need to finish. So I should be getting to those given our current circumstances.
Whiskey Cavalier.
Oh, did she work on Whiskey Cavalier?
She did.
Oh, that's funny. So I was going to ask you, she has worked on Ray Donovan, and I'm wondering if you have watched that.
No, I haven't. And another one that's really been kind of on the fringes of my watch list, but there's only so much time, even in the quarantine day.
So I've always kind of liked Liev Schreiber, and I fell in love with his brother Pablo when I started watching American Gods. So I've been curious about Ray Donovan because Liev Schreiber is in that.
Right.
So
he's the main character.
Yeah, and I know it's Showtime, but I'm figuring it can probably buy past seasons on like iTunes or Amazon at this point.
Yeah. I think was it Showtime or Stars? Someone was offering a really good deal, at least on my Facebook feed, according to my metrics.
I think it was Stars.
Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good, like, your first 6 months are like $4 or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty
like,
sure it was Stars.
They're trying to get people hooked where they got them at home.
Exactly. You know, and that's another thing that's on my to finish list is Outlander. I mean, I'm like season 3.
Yeah, I think I finished season 1.
See,
and again, I mean,
I read like the first 4 books, so I know the story fairly well, and I've read the first book probably 4 or 5 times. So anyway, yeah, Outlander's on the list too. I don't have anything else to say about the director except she's touched a lot that I feel like I need to either watch or finish.
So much to finish. I mean, I started Vikings, I started Black Sails, like I've started so many that I have not finished. And I mean, even our featured cast member this episode, I've started one of her shows and I haven't finished.
Really? So I'm super curious.
Really?
And let's go ahead and launch into that because there really wasn't a whole lot about her on just the general internet. I know that you looked at least one interview.
Right. So our featured cast member, of course, this episode is Princess Paula Lazario. And I would roll my R's, but again, I'm 2/3 into the bottle of a bottle of wine, so that's not happening.
I can't even do it when I'm like fully through a double margarita. So
I'm actually surprised I can still do it since I had my braces because I actually lost my ability to whistle when I had my braces. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
Things you don't think of. So. Lazario is actually what I know her from.
Paula.
Well, yes, Paula.
Paula. I think it's like Spanish for Paula.
Yes.
It's Paola, in case anybody's curious.
Yeah, and I called her by her last name, Lazario.
Yeah.
So I know her from Lethal Weapon, except that I don't know her from Lethal Weapon because I actually haven't watched the last season of it, which is the season that she is in. So the TV show Lethal Weapon actually replaced the character of Riggs. And I know, how would you do that? But apparently there was a lot of strife on set with that actor. And so instead of like canceling the show, they kicked him off and they replaced him with Paolo. And so a female kind of Riggs type character named Gutierrez. They knew that they were only going to do one last season before they ended the show. So this last season is the last season. So I really have no excuse for not catching up, other than I've been binging with Tiger King. Have I mentioned Tiger King? So the other thing that Paolo is in that I was interested in is a show called Smilf. And it's a TV series on Showtime. And, of course, we all know what MILF stands for. Well, the S, I believe, stands for single.
Ah, so okay.
It kind of looks like a Desperate Housewives kind of single mother, but on Showtime so that you can have nudity. So it looks interesting. She's in 2 episodes of that, but she actually has a very short acting career thus far. She's only been on screen since 2015. What she's really known as is a playwright. So did you see any of this?
So I kind of skimmed over it. I just kind of looked quickly at her IMDb, which is virtually nothing. And then looked quickly at her Wikipedia page, and basically what I got out of that was that she was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico. She got her Bachelor's of Fine Arts at SUNY and her MFA at Columbia. And then she got some sort of like National Hispanic Endowment to write a play.
Yes.
And it was called I Am Hector or something like that.
So in 2017, her play Tell Hector I Miss Him was nominated for a Drama League Award for Best Production Off-Broadway of a Broadway or Off-Broadway play, and was nominated for an Outer Critics Circle Award for the John Gassner Playwright Award. I have no idea what all of those things mean other than they're words, and it kind of sounds like a big deal in the playwright world.
And you got them out sounding sober, which means your liver really is better trained than mine.
So if you're looking for any of her playwright credits, she's actually credited under Paola Lazario Munoz.
Wow.
So,
but your Spanish isn't made any better by drinking. And I don't speak Spanish, so I wouldn't be any better off than you.
No, I have terrible enunciation. There is actually a really good article that I wanted to read. It's called A Playwright Who Puts Her Demons and Family to Work. But it's on the New York Times, and they have a paywall. So
wait, what? There's a difference between demons and family?
That's funny. So I watched an interview with her, and it's about a year old, and it's a show on YouTube called Quiero the Show, and it's a show about up-and-coming Latinx.
Very cool.
The show is about 40 minutes long, and I will say that Paolo and the person interviewing her talk very, very openly about their mental health, their past drug abuse, things like that. It goes to some pretty dark places, and Paolo seems to be very, very open about those things. And
except
the
it's
interview is actually
Paola, right?
Is it Paola? Okay, Paola.
It's Paola. Yeah, I think you keep saying Paolo, but it's Paola.
So I actually have a friend who has her name spelled the same, and she pronounces it Paola.
I don't think that's the way this actress pronounces hers. She might after getting the role of princess.
No, but... and the really funny thing is she's not even Latina. She is oh God. She's of Asian descent. I forget where she's from, but she's Asian, and her name is Paola.
Oh my God, that's really funny.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe her father or something has Hispanic roots or something. I don't know. But, so that's where I keep getting the mispronunciation as I see her name and I think of my friend. But the title of the article is actually How and Why She Writes Her Passion for Mental Health Awareness. So she's very, very open about her family's history of mental illness and also her struggle with it. So I usually try and look up actors and actresses, charities, and see if they have anything that they are very big on. And so far, she doesn't seem to have any, but I would guess going forward with her uprising popularity and fame that she will probably do something in that same vein.
That would be very cool.
Yes.
And God knows there is definitely going to be a need for mental health awareness coming out of what we're coming out of.
Yeah, I think we're all going a little bit stir crazy.
Yeah.
And she does make her home in New York, so I doubt, I don't know if she's there now. I would imagine that she would have left Georgia after the
they
season
stopped
of filming.
Season 11.
Right.
Well, and they started did they start on season 11 and then have to stop, or did they not start at all?
I don't think they started at all,
okay.
But there's actually
I think you're
quite
right.
a few.
I think that pre-production was halted and then production of Fear was halted. I think you're exactly right.
So you can find her on Instagram, Paola Lazario, and also same on Twitter, Paola. And now I'm so self-conscious about saying that now. __ Lazario.
Any warnings about her slant on Twitter or Instagram?
No, she seems to be very upbeat and positive on her Instagram. Her Twitter. She tweets a lot about just kind of what she's doing now for work and things like that. Links to her Instagram a lot, and her Instagram is very cool. It has a lot of right now, of course, it has a lot of Walking Dead references on it. There's one of her trying on her princess costume for the first time.
Oh, cool.
And there's a ton on her dog, Bettina. She's got a basset hound, Bettina.
Oh, a basset.
Yes, it's adorable. And so from the name, the Bettina is a feminized version of Benedict. So I would assume that her basset hound is female.
I would agree.
But it looks like she's, got a lot of travel pics. It looks like she gets back to Puerto Rico a lot.
Not currently.
Yeah, right? Nobody's going anywhere. Very, very big in the playwright world. She's got a couple of big credits to her name, but, Princess is actually kind of a long-running character in the books, so I think we're going to see a lot more from her.
I'm pretty excited.
I am too.
Yeah.
I've seen some reviews that say that her cartoony type Harley Quinn character is really not going to stand up on the show. They're going to have to tone it down because it's going to get a little grating.
Are you kidding me? We had Eugene, Rosita, and Abe together for how long? And they were ripped from the pages of the comic book. Are you kidding me?
And they also called like just kind of her whole shtick kind of cartoony and over the top. And I'm like, well, she's been alone by herself. Yeah, I mean, I've been with somebody else in my house for 2 weeks quarantined, and I'm a little crazy.
Okay, I've got.
I mean, I'm not handcuffing the neighbors to rocking chairs and them up or anything. I mean, not yet, but.
I have 4 words for the person who wrote that, and 2 of them are "shut up," and I'll leave the other 2 to your imagination.
Right? So my only critique is that jacket she is wearing.
No, but that jacket is right out of the comics.
I know it is.
Yeah,
but
I'm just literally is right out of the comics.
Have you ever worn one of those big puffy jackets or a big parka or something? Like, you're a little kid in a snowsuit. There's no dexterity.
Well, but she wears it more flatteringly than I would.
Yeah, definitely. I love her kind of, God, I want to say that she looks like a character out of Sucker Punch.
She kind of looks like Tank Girl. That's who she reminds me of.
Yes. And I mean, you cannot go wrong with purple hair. So
no,
I'm excited. I'm really disappointed that we're only going to get one more episode with her this season.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Housewives Housekeeping Corner. Do you want to do corrections first or last?
Let's do it last because I cannot get a hold of that graph that I posted.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I am just going to say COVID crafting, COVID baking, COVID shopping, and COVID carving are all things.
Wait, COVID carving?
COVID carbing. Sorry, I said carving. I meant
okay.
carbing.
Carbing. Okay. Oh yeah, definitely. COVID eating is definitely a thing.
So I'm going to tell you that I have found some really phenomenal recipes, and if anybody wants me to share them on Biters, I would be happy to. I don't know which was my favorite. The kolache, which is this wonderful Hungarian wrapped bread, sweet bread. The Brazilian fish stew that we had last night was pretty amazing. And then I got out my old bread book, the Tassahara bread book, which is just the most amazing bread book on the market. It's like 40 years old and it's still incredible. And I've made a couple of really amazing loaves of bread. So COVID baking, COVID crafting. I've been making masks like a mad woman.
Which are awesome.
Thank you. I have some Walking Dead fabric on the way. I actually bought some Walking Dead fabric. Cannot for the life of me figure out where I stashed it. Cannot find it anywhere. And our house is not that big. So I
do that all the time.
Oh my God, it's maddening. So I ordered some off of eBay, and I'm going to make some Walking Dead masks, surgical masks, just so in case anybody has questions. And if anybody wants a pattern for surgical masks, message me and I will post the pattern on the Biter's website, because there's a pretty good pattern that I've got that's fairly straightforward for sewing and has a pocket for a filter.
Plus, didn't you post something about the headbands that people are also starting to make that have the buttons on them?
Yeah, I'm not making those, but there are patterns, and it's going around on Facebook for a headband with buttons on it. And the reason that nurses are using that is because their ears get raw and sore from the elastic looping around their ears. So some of the nurses have started wearing headbands and looping the loops around the buttons instead to spare their skin.
Oh, the innovation that happens during crisis. I mean, the Renaissance happened after the Black Plague. And
right.
So I see all these people making stuff like, there's a company here in town. There's a place here in town who's actually making the plastic face guards.
Cool.
And I've seen a number of industrial factories start to make different sorts of PPE like that. And then, Dyson and Tesla and Elon Musk getting into making ventilators. Did you see this ventilator?
I do not feel so bad about spending the money on my Dyson hairdryer, knowing that it's going toward those kinds of things. So,
right.
And the other housewife is getting a Dyson flat iron. I'm so jealous.
I still want the air wrap. Did you see that they're using a ventilator to power 9 ventilation for patients?
Wow, no, I've heard up to 4. I didn't realize that they had something split out for 9 people.
9. They all have to have about the same lung capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually learned it from doctors in Italy that had started doing this. They have posted the plans and the pictures and like what pieces you need and everything. It's just the innovation and the people coming together to help everyone out is just, it's phenomenal. I mean, it gives me chills.
I was talking with a friend of mine today, and I kind of feel like we're going to get pushed into some of that really, I don't even know how to say it. I mean, incredibly techie science, but also very isolating science like you read about in cyber fiction novels.
Right.
I really see us headed in that direction, and I don't know that we're going to be able to reverse course. I think we're going to see significant changes in how we relate to each other and how we shop and how we buy food. I think this is really going to push us in that direction.
Well, look at grandparents that, people laughed about the quirky little things that they had, habits they had their entire lives, like reusing Ziploc bags and, things like that. But, it was just because of the time that they lived through. And, it fundamentally changed them and the way that they did things for the rest of their lives. And we've, their children and their children's children have kind of moved away from that. I think you're going to see us moving back towards that. There are some interesting things that you and I have talked about, and the other housewife too, that like, I'm very big on using my reusable coffee cup when I go to our local coffee place. And I'm also big on using my reusable bags. And you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I found out today after 2 weeks of isolation that I couldn't reuse my reusable bags. It was kind of a weird thing, but it also made total sense.
Yeah, because it's been pushed on us so much that it's like, no, use the reusable one. And now it's like, no, you don't want to use that reusable one.
Okay, I want to tell you a little bit more about some of the COVID stuff I've been doing. And then I want to talk about an innovation that I saw in the news last night because it was super cool. So I am starting to piece a quilt that I bought in 2017. Crazy. I finished the shawl I've been working on. So now I'm working on the hat for Sean. Hey, Sean. And I definitely want to say COVID shopping is a thing because I basically bought brand new dishes, utensils, glassware, pastry making stuff. Yeah, I had a good time on Amazon the other night.
And again, it's that I always have to look at it, and we come from a place of privilege. We're about middle classy. We're not
both
that
essential. We're both,
yeah,
we're pretty much guaranteed work.
right.
I mean, if
right.
for some reason the work at my clinic dried up, I could always go back and work in the ER.
So it's nice to be able to spend money now and really not have to worry about, where our next paycheck is coming. But it's also really, really nice to know that, me spending money, as messed up as it sounds, is also keeping the economy going.
Right. I mean, maybe I'm helping somebody else stay in their job for another day. I hope so.
Exactly.
But I've got to tell you, too, it's kind of comforting. And really, frankly, we have been using donated dishes from our fire.
Oh, wow.
Like, we literally bought a new set of pots and pans. We bought a couple of fancy wine glasses and some silverware, and that was it. Everything else is donated. So
wow.
I kind of feel like after 5 years, I kind of deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I want to tell you about this innovation that I saw in the news last night.
Okay.
Specifically how it relates to my friend Tom, which we didn't talk about Tom on the last podcast, so I'm going to talk about him for a second. And then I want you to tell us about the Tiger King.
Okay, but I'll have to make my corrections corner before that because it kind of relates to COVID.
Okay, very good. So I told Marnell, but I didn't say it on the podcast because I didn't feel like it was my story to tell, but I since have gotten permission to talk about it from my friend's wife. So a really good friend of mine and my husband's, we've been friends with him for about 30 years, had a fall 5 or 6 weeks ago. He was actually cleaning something off of his roof, like cleaning snow off of his roof by himself. No one was home, so his fall was unwitnessed, and it was a 9 or a 10-foot fall. He thought that all he did was mess up his shoulder, and I'm pretty sure he drove himself to the emergency room, and his wife met him there. And the ER doc was like, well, did you lose consciousness? And his answer was, I don't think so. And his wife was like, hello, there's abrasions all over his head. Well, they concentrated.
I don't think so is a yes.
Right. Well, and really honestly, when you're talking about trauma medicine, an unwitnessed fall from that height is brain imaging and neck imaging until proven otherwise. Well, they didn't do that. All they did was look at his shoulder. And so he has been getting progressively worse headaches over the last several weeks and is a totally stoic guy. He's like the nicest guy, the brightest guy, the funniest guy, and completely stoic, never complains about anything. Finally, a little over a week ago, his wife was with him at his chiropractor's appointment because he's kept going to his chiropractor for these headaches. She said, I'm done. We've got to figure out what this is. This guy never complains. We've got to figure it out. So the chiropractor was like, okay, but I'd really rather do the imaging during the weekday because we can do contrast with the imaging. Okay, so they set him up last Monday, a week ago today, for a brain MRI with contrast. And he went to work, had an imaging appointment at like 2:30, and the rad tech actually walked out of the suite where they stay when they take the images, handed him his clothes and said, you're going to the ER and the neurosurgeon is meeting you there.
Yikes.
So I actually saw a copy of his MRI today, and he had really big subdural bleeds. Like, he had a pretty significant shift in brain tissue. And he was actually starting to hemorrhage brain tissue down through the foramen magnum, which is the big opening in the skull where the spine comes out, or where the spine kind of meets. I mean, he was in bad shape, and he was still up and walking around, which is just amazing. So they took him to neurosurgery the next morning and did a craniotomy to relieve the pressure and to drain the bleeds. And the surgeon called his wife, who, of course, because of COVID-19 precautions, was not allowed to visit, and said, he's doing fine. He's going to be in the hospital overnight. Then he'll be on light duty for a week. Then he's good to go. Well, 2 hours later, the same surgeon called her back and said, he's had a stroke and we're moving him to the ICU. So for me, they became the forgotten face of COVID-19. I mean, they became the people that we're not talking about so much who need an ICU bed, who need an emergent surgery, who don't have COVID-19, but both are taking up beds that are needed by COVID-19 patients. That's cold to frame it that way, but that's kind of where we're at these days. But they also, in and of themselves, become high-risk patients because all of a sudden they're hospitalized in a setting where they have a much greater risk of being exposed. Plus, they're sick, so they have a much greater risk of coming down with something.
Right. That has to be so scary. And for her not to be able to visit him, ugh.
I think that was the thing that was so hard for all of us, is that, I mean, he went from having headaches and being, to the best of our knowledge, healthy, to suddenly being a surgery patient, to suddenly being a stroke patient, and no one in his family or circle of friends could be there for him. And the ICU nurse, when she actually got him on FaceTime with his wife after his stroke, said, "You should be really glad I'm not letting you come, because the only reason we let someone visit is if their loved one is dying."
Ugh. And by the way, bless all of the nurse and healthcare staff out there that are having the patients FaceTime with their family, that are arranging that and taking their time out of their day to do that. That's just, I just know it's been a year since my dad was taken to Harborview for an aortic aneurysm, and just to be there and advocating for a friend or family member in the hospital is, I think that aids so much in their healing, you know, just to be there and just to, you know, have that extra attention that they get, because the medical staff can't be there 24/7 with them when they need a drink of water, or, you know, maybe, you know, a bed sore is discomfort, you know, they have a discomfort because of a bed sore, and so you know, you need to turn them, or I could not imagine having someone in an ICU right now and not being able to go to them.
So there was a really pretty cool connection with the ICU nurse that I will leave. If people do want to read the story, it's in my blog, which is nursedianneinaalaska.wordpress.com. My last 2 blog entries have been about Tom, with his wife's permission. And he actually came home yesterday because his neurosurgeon was smart enough to realize that he's made such significant progress in the past week that it was probably going to be safer for him to do home health than to go to a skilled nursing facility to rehab, just in terms of being with family and having limited exposure as opposed to significant exposure, because we've seen so many of the COVID-19 outbreaks get kind of centralized and seated in nursing homes.
Yep.
So he's home. We actually visited today because we knew that I'd had a negative COVID-19 test, and this was my last day before I went back to work. And he's doing really good. He still gets tired. He's still a little weak on the right side, but he's gone from full paralysis to just being weak on the right side. His biggest thing is that he has a hard time expressing himself. Like we talked about it today, and it's all very clear in his head, and you can really tell that he's still there and still processing, but he has a hard time getting it out. So he's going to be doing a lot of work with speech and language therapy.
It's only been a week, Tom.
It's only been a week. So, I mean,
you're doing amazing.
I actually really think he's got great chances of fully recovering because his recovery has been so rapid. But yeah, I think the thing that really brought it home to me was just how isolated our patients and their families are because of the precautions that are in place because of this disease.
Yeah.
Very quickly, because of course we're talking again totally about COVID-19. I'm sorry, you guys, but I thought that was a really important story to share. There is a nursing home I believe in California. I could be wrong, but I believe in California. I know the place where the robots came from is in California, but basically there are these freestanding little robots that the family member who is outside of the nursing home can kind of take control of, steer it through the nursing home to where their loved one is, and they can FaceTime with their loved one in the nursing home without any input from the nursing staff or the medical assistant staff.
Oh my God.
Which is
actually
awesome because they're not reliant on staff having to find the time to help them FaceTime.
everyone who has seen Big Bang Theory, and Diane is not one of you, everyone that has seen Big Bang Theory is thinking Sheldon Bott right now.
Oh God, that's really funny. Okay. Well, all I know is that it was amazing. I saw that on the news last night, and I saw a woman get a chance to make a connection with her elderly parents on her time and their time, not dependent on whether or not a nurse or a nurse's aide could find the time.
So, and this is why we are talking about COVID-19 on a Walking Dead podcast, is because it is fundamentally changing everything we do in our lives. And it's the dominant thing right now.
And I think those changes, some of them are going to persist. I think some of the technology that we're dealing with now, some of the habits that we're creating now, I think those are going to persist even when we get a vaccine and get treatment.
Innovation. I mean, this is why, you know, in the show that, you know, you're able to have communities is people develop ways to filter water and to feed people and to have medicine. It's innovation in the time of crisis.
Which, by the way, next up on my Kindle are The Stand, which I read when it first came out like 40 years ago, because I just thought it was appropriate apocalypse reading. And there is a book that came out within the last couple of weeks about the flu pandemic of 1918 it's a nonfiction book and supposedly quite well written. And I thought it would be really interesting to kind of hear what those people experienced and what kind of innovation came out of that. So I did put that on my Kindle as well. Okay, I'm sorry. I've totally taken up way too much time talking about COVID baking, COVID shopping, and COVID carbing, but it's all real.
COVID coping is really what it is.
Yeah, it's all COVID coping. Exactly.
So one last COVID thing. I misspoke on our last podcast, and I said that 80% of people will recover from COVID. And I'm not saying that 20% of people will die from COVID. I'm very sorry if anybody thought that, if I gave that impression. Thanks, Thomas O'Mara, for pointing it out. 80% of people will get mild to moderate symptoms of COVID.
Like 80% of the population, right? Or
right,
80% of those who are infected.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which, I don't know, I'm preparing for everyone to get it, because, I mean, we have all had the crud, the flu. Like, humans spread germs. It's just what we do. We're all little petri dishes, you know? So
question for you, because I haven't specifically looked at the numbers. So if 80% are going to get very mild cases, the other 20%, like, some of those people are going to get more severe, but like stay-at-home cases. And then some of them are people who are going to end up in the hospital, potentially intubated.
Critical. Yes.
Do we know how that 20% divvies out?
So the numbers that I posted on the Biters page, the graph that I posted, was a study of 44,672 confirmed cases in China. And 80.9%, so essentially 81%, will have mild symptoms like a flu and stay at home. 13.8 will have severe symptoms, which includes hospitalization. And 4.7 will have critical symptoms, which means intensive care. So
those are the people who get put on a ventilator.
Yes, so around 20% of people will need hospitalization, but around 5 will be critical. So flatten the curve, stay home.
And I just want to say, all politics aside, because God knows I could get very political and I'm not going to, it was phenomenal to see the Comfort dock in New York this morning. It is phenomenal that the Mercy is docking. I believe it's already docked in LA.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's amazing to see all of these field hospitals spring up everywhere. I mean, there are so many things that we are struggling to make right in our response right now, but I'm really happy to see those things. I think those are very positive strides.
Well, and again, all politics aside, I think that more could be done by those in charge, but I'm just the infusion of money that is happening at the federal and state level that I see is going to be one factor that's going to pull us out of not only the COVID crisis, but the impending financial crisis that follows. So I have to give props where props is deserved.
The other thing I want to say about that, and it's kind of along the same lines, is that I think we're all kind of getting our private victory gardens on. I mean, for me, seriously. So for me,
Yep.
like brushing off my baking skills, working hard to make masks for people who I know need some form of protection if they can't get a surgical mask like an N95. That's important to me. That makes me feel like I'm doing something. And I see a lot of people doing that. We did go out and do some shopping today, which is, I mean, that's all we're doing. We're going out and doing household shopping if we need to and getting gas, and that's it. And I will tell you, when I was standing in the crafting aisle at Walmart looking for stuff for masks, there were 4 other women standing there looking for the same stuff.
Oh, that's so inspiring.
It's very inspiring. It makes me feel good. And I can't tell you the number of people on Facebook who've been like, could you please share that post again for that pattern?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a sad state of affairs that we have to do this, but I'm grateful that there are so many people who are stepping forward.
Absolutely. It really reminds me of what happened after 9/11 when everyone kind of came together for a time.
And I just want to say, hug your healthcare worker, because those people...
Virtually, not for real.
Virtually. Those people are telling the truth about what their daily experience is. Those people are telling the truth about having PPE shortage. They're telling the truth about taking care of patients who are so incredibly sick. I watched a heart-rending Facebook post by a nurse the other night who was like, I managed 2 patients on a vent who were critically ill by myself all night long because the physicians and all of the other nurses were completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're telling the truth. I mean, regardless of whatever you believe, whatever else you hear, those frontline healthcare providers are crying out for help.
And, for every one, there's 100 that are just quiet heroes.
And I will say, and then I swear to God, I'll get off my soapbox and we'll get on to Whisperer's Corner. I saw the most heartening post on Facebook last night. It was a plane full of doctors and nurses who are flying into New York to help New York.
Wow.
There are people from other areas of the country that are not hard hit currently, and they're flying into the hot zone, basically, to help because they know their colleagues need help.
We have our very own Doctors Without Borders.
We do. And speaking of doctors, I just want to say that Alaska's chief medical officer, Ann Zink, is one of the biggest brains out there, and I'm so proud of her and so grateful that she works in our state.
Mm-hmm.
She's
we're
phenomenal.
Very lucky.
Yeah, we're incredibly lucky.
All right. Whisperer's Corner.
Whisperer's Corner. I'm so sorry.
For all the skippers, you can stop skipping.
I mean, I could totally preach for hours, and I'm so sorry, you guys, but it is so close to my heart. It's so close to my heart. What was that?
She needs to restart you need to restart your socio-political podcast.
Yeah, I talked to Todd about that the other night, but he's not quite in a space where we can do that. So you and I may have to prop it up until Todd can come back. We should think about it.
Not smart enough.
Oh,
I'm just
yes,
the
you are.
here.
Oh, for the love of God, you are. All right, now I'm going to pin you into it. We're not going to finish Preacher. We're going to reboot This Conversation Rocks. All right, we'll talk about that more.
To finish Biters.
Right. All right, and finish Biters tonight, right?
Right?
Okay.
Sometime tonight.
So we said we weren't going to talk about COVID-19 anymore, but the first 2 things actually in Whisperer's Corner have to do with COVID-19. This is not news to most of you by now. The season 10 finale has been delayed because apparently there were things that needed to be done in post-production that now can't be done because of social distancing and isolating and quarantining.
Travel.
So what they're telling us at this point is that it's going to come on at an unspecified date, and it's going to be a, quote, one-off special episode.
Man, that, I really hope they turn that into kind of a mini movie. I hope they take some stuff off the cutting room floor, put it back in, and we've got nearly 2 hours of and I hope they do it like commercial free, and they better make a big deal out of it.
That would certainly be smart.
It would. And having said all that, I'm totally on board with everyone being as safe as possible, and I'm okay with them cutting the last episode as long as we do get to see it eventually. But I hold no ill will to anybody that has to make that decision, and makes the right decision for the health of everyone involved.
Absolutely. And I've got to tell you, at this point, Vandemic is still saying they're on, so we'll see you in Atlanta in October.
Still so nervous about that.
Once Marnell buys the airplane tickets. Because once you buy the airplane tickets, I can book our hotel.
Okay.
Alaska Airlines has said they will refund our tickets.
Every day, I'm just I'm going to buy the tickets, and tomorrow they're going to cancel it.
Vandemic has said they will refund our tickets.
Yeah.
So I really don't think we're going to be out anything if it gets canceled.
No.
I think we're good. I think we're good.
I think so. Right.
So the next thing in Whisperer's Corner, and I found this tonight, and I thought it was so great. So, of course, because of what's happened in terms of restaurant service, Nick and Norman's would have been impacted, but Greg Nicotero and Norman Reedus decided to turn their restaurant into a pop-up grocery store. So they are selling stuff like toilet paper and hand sanitizers, and their goal is to keep people working and to give back to Sonoy.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
I love it.
So they're still doing curbside takeout, so there's still food available through Nick and Norman's, but in order to keep people employed, it's also now a pop-up grocery store.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so props to Nick and Norman.
Yeah.
Okay, my next thing on Whisperer's Corner is not COVID related at all. I don't know if you saw it, and I'll try to share it if I can find a link. Andy Lincoln actually made a musical send-off video for Denai Guerrera on Instagram.
Yes. It is super funny.
And I have to tell you, Marnell, I locked myself out of my Instagram account, so I created a new one. So you'll have to PM me your Instagram handle so I can start following you again.
Oh no!
I know, I'm such a dork. Anyway, and then finally, the last thing I have, I did not find anything written by Eric Kane about this week's episode, but Paul Tassi actually wrote 2 things about this week's episode. The first was called "The Walking Dead Finally Blows the Door Off Beta's Secret Identity," which of course we knew, right? It wasn't a giant secret, but they confirmed it. And the thing that I didn't realize was that the album that he picked up was actually the same album cover that we saw on Fear.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Okay.
And then his other article was titled, "Is Negan Actually a Better Hero Than Rick on The Walking Dead?" His argument was interesting. He said that Negan is more complex and Negan is a much more interesting character. That Rick was kind of, what you see is what you get.
Yeah. It's really hard to compare them because, for me, Rick was always lawman and father. And Negan was a grieving husband, they came from
murderer.
Right? They came from 2 totally separate ends of the spectrum, even before the zombie apocalypse. So it's kind of hard to make the comparison. That one's not better than the other, they're just different.
I can actually see his argument that Negan has more complexity and that Rick is kind of a one-note character. I love Rick. Yeah. I love Andy Lincoln. I love the way that Andy Lincoln portrayed him. Mm-hmm. I actually think we saw an incredible amount of depth in that character. But I can see Paul Tassi's point. It was interesting.
Yeah, I get it.
All right, I got nothing else for Whisperer's Corner. Do you have anything for Whisperer's Corner?
So Eric Kane did do a review of The Walking Dead.
I didn't see it,
The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 14, recap and review, Half Moon, Full Negan. And And he and I are in agreement, and his kind of bad for the episode is my bad for the episode. So we'll get there.
So all I have to say about Eric Kane as well, I was unsuccessfully searching for his article today. I thought, I wonder what he'd have to say about nurses now.
Nurses, right?
Maybe I need to find him on Twitter and tweet him and ask him if he wanted to rethink his assessment of nursing skills.
Yes.
I'll let you know how that works out. I'll let him know that he's become a fixture of biters for that very reason.
Right?
Yes.
Him and Paul Tassi. We gotta know what the Forbes guys think.
Yep. All right. Take me to your good.
My good. You've already mentioned it. So my good was Alpha haunting Carol. I absolutely loved that this episode because we not only got to see Alpha again, even though she is dead, but every time you hear her taunting Carol about how she got her kids killed and she's probably going to get Daryl killed and, you'll never be forgiven for that thing you did to Connie and all this kind of stuff. That is actually all in Carol's head. So Carol knows how awful she has been this season, and she's haunted by it. And I just love how it came to her in the form of Alpha.
Okay, and I have got to interrupt you and say the litany of weird insults. I can only assume that those were all insults that Ed actually made against Carol at one point. Brainless clam, empty-headed slit, stupid coos. I can remember him calling them stupid coozes down at the quarry. Okay, I remember that insult. I don't remember the first two. And I was like, the weird thing about those is they're almost perverted, but not quite.
Yes.
So I was wondering, I think those were directly taken from Ed's language to torment Carol.
And I think that she did mention something about, like...
She did mention Ed at one point. Alpha did.
Yeah, and, something about how you're just a weak woman. Like, I forget what it was, but it was just like...
No, he called her... She said that he referred to her as a brainless clam. That was the first insult that came up.
You go back and you watch the episode and you just keep in mind that every time Alpha says something, that is actually something Carol is thinking about herself.
Or something that someone else has said to her that she's reliving.
Right. And Alpha even does the little line where Carol's like, oh, please forgive me, she
actually,
did
that was my favorite part when Samantha Morton, when Alpha was saying, oh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Just the way she expressed it, the emotiveness, the expression on her face, it was really good.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was, but it's like they lightened Samantha Morton's makeup around her eyes. And
they did.
She still had that mocking, sing-song, very soft tone, but. Oh God, it was just it was so well done. And, this of course isn't the first time we've seen Carol hallucinate. So yeah, I think that Carol has issues and you can't sustain instability in the zombie apocalypse. So, I don't think she's dying this season, but I think Carol's on her way out.
So I have to tell you that I'm continuing my rewatch of Seasons Past, and it has played so well against these last couple of episodes. It's been really interesting watching the setup and watching the relationships and just kind of watching how things come really full circle.
Huh.
I've really enjoyed it. It's really worth watching, again, for that very reason.
I know. I definitely need to. It's just a lot of work. 10 seasons.
Well, the awesome thing is of course I have been working on putting together these masks, and now I'm working on putting together this quilt. and which actually, I don't know if I should say this out loud because I think I think Michelle listens to the podcast, but I'm going to risk it. I'm actually putting that quilt together for Tom.
Aww.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm able to kind of pay half attention and then dial back into things where I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that, or I've never caught it from that perspective before. So that's been really fun.
Because you and I weren't the original podcast of Biters, so we haven't talked about a lot of the early episodes.
Oh my God, but I've watched all of them so many times.
All right, so that was my good. What was your good?
So my good was the dioramas and Ezekiel's reaction to them. I loved it when he was just in stitches looking at that zombie in the car with the zombie cop.
Yeah, I love that he just lost it.
He did. It was awesome. I loved seeing that because he was so serious throughout the whole episode. And I loved the dioramas. I thought they were really funny. I mean, when we first saw that storefront, especially with all the color and that zombie in the rocking chair, I was like, oh my God, maybe this is where we're going to meet Princess. Maybe this is gearing up to Princess. And sure enough, it was. So I just thought they were great. I would say, though, that probably the parking cop zombie was my favorite.
Really, I liked the fortune teller one. The very first one we saw. Yeah.
The one that was kind of in the windows?
No,
or the one that was actually sitting out front?
Yeah. Okay. It was just so elaborate and so brightly colored that it was the first one you see, it's very striking, you know?
I actually think that the first zombies that we saw that were in that cage, I was looking at that on my rewatch and I was like, you know, that kind of looks like a bird cage.
Well, and see, I went to Fear the Walking Dead, where that's how she traps the zombies, and that's how Grace was trapping zombies, was the birds in a cage.
Okay, that's very interesting.
And so I was like, that's how she's getting her marionettes, basically, is she's trapping them with the bird cages, and then I don't know how she's getting them to where they are and getting them all staged, but I mean, she has to have something that she puts over their head or whatever, because I mean, it was pretty elaborate. And okay, one, I actually hate the word diorama. For me, it's like the word moist.
Oh my God, that's really funny.
I hate that word, and I always actually thought it stood for like miniatures. You know, like you make a miniature set of something.
No, it's more like a scene.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was all inclusive like that. And so I learned something new and about a word that I cannot stand. And two, it really reminded me of the movie I Am Legend. Have you seen that one with Will Smith?
I need to go back and watch that because I really loved it. But of course, the dog getting killed just killed me.
Yeah.
Spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it. Maybe we'll have to podcast that in the hiatus, since the hiatus is going to be a lot longer than we thought it was going to be.
Right?
That would be an excuse for me to go back and watch it.
You're just trying to get out of watching The Night of the Comet.
I will watch Night of the Comet because you have committed to The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Oh, man. Okay, so the zombie marionettes reminded me of I Am Legend's use of mannequins and posing them as everyday figures in life, because you're so friggin' lonely. And I think all of this social distancing and quarantine, we can all relate.
Oh my God, we're going to start posing people. We're going to start handcuffing people to their cars and posing them. That's kind of funny.
I was going to say, as long as you can do it at a 6-foot distance, I mean, if you're that persuasive, you deserve your little marionette show diorama.
Okay, I looked at the poor little girl who checked us out at Walmart today, who had gloves on, thank God, but did not have a mask. And I said, number one, I don't know how you keep 6 feet away from everybody that you see. Number two, you are just as much a frontline worker as I am, and I'm grateful for your service.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. It's crazy.
Right. Tell me you're bad.
So, my bad was Eric Kane's bad also. The Carol reneging on her deal with Negan was a total dick move.
Oh my God. Okay, so I texted you the night that I was watching it, and I said, who made the deal with the devil? Was it Negan or was it Carol? I came away convinced that Negan made the deal with the devil.
Yes. And
I completely think he got stiffed by Carol. I do.
Who would have thought a year ago, 2 years ago, that we would be like, oh, I can't believe Carol did XYZ to Negan. You know, we'd all be clutching our pearls about, like, you know, her actions towards Negan. But I have to say that, like, total dick move by Carol. And she's done a lot of dick moves this season.
But, you know, the other thing that I thought was she was not in the clearing when Negan killed Glenn and Abraham. So she does not have that image drilled into her brain. And I think because of that, it was easier for her to make a bargain with Negan.
You know, I can't say one way or the other, but I don't know if it would matter because her quest to take down Alpha was all consuming.
Yeah, no, I definitely think she was the devil in this equation.
Yeah, definitely. Like, who would have ever thought that we would have been, like, cheering on Negan's side? And I'm totally on Negan's side on this one. Like, she left him hanging because he's right. He will hang if he walks back to Alexandria without her. And without Alexandria, he's really got nothing. I mean... Okay,
I have questions. So we don't see what happened to him. We see him having that friendly drink with Daryl, that relatively friendly drink with Daryl. And then the next thing we see of Daryl, he's letting Carol back into Alexandria. So does that mean Negan's there?
I absolutely believe that. And the only reason why I absolutely believe that is I saw the previews for the next episode.
Oh, God, that's so funny. Okay, I didn't watch the previews for next. Well, I kind of caught the beta means business stuff, but other than that, I didn't watch it.
But I mean, I can't imagine what else he would have done because there's really nowhere else to go. I mean, I don't think that someone could be cast out at this point with basically nothing.
Well,
and be
so
able to
spoiler alert, in the books, Negan actually does go and hole up in a cottage by himself. I don't think that we're going to take as big a star who's got the kind of charisma that Jeffrey Dean Morgan does and end him that way, but I don't know.
I don't either, especially considering we have no Rick, so we don't have, you know, somebody's got to pick up those storylines.
Which, by the way, did you see that JDM had his dog in the background on talking?
Yes, that was the first thing I noticed.
His big floofy dog.
Okay, it was actually the second thing I noticed. Chris Hardwick, you have a podcast studio. How is your audio the worst audio out of everyone you interview?
Okay, totally. I looked at my husband and I said, we have better audio than Chris Hardwick does. That's
He has
bad.
the Nerdist podcast studio. Like, I'm pretty sure in his house. So, yeah. I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know either, man.
Anyway, what was your bad?
All right. My bad was that there was lots of buildup in this episode that went nowhere.
Middle book.
So the first was Carol and Alpha. I mean, we have that huge look at the flowers moment. We have Carol trapped and the zombie coming toward her. I would have actually been okay with that being the end of Carol.
I kind of would too.
I mean, I don't want to see Melissa McBride go, and I don't want to lose that character, but I was like, this would be an appropriate end. Having someone, even in her head, tell her to look at the flowers and having this be it. Especially since she spent the whole damned episode going, I just want to be alone.
Yeah, we know how well that fared last time.
So my other thing is Beta. What? Okay, I'm not deep. I obviously didn't get it. I don't understand the concert. I don't understand what made him decide to put Alpha down. I am not grokking the whole Beta thing at all.
Okay,
talk me off the ledge.
Okay, so I was actually very surprised that he that he stabbed her head, that he finally was the one to completely take her out. But, and I actually didn't get that somebody, like one of his fans basically had committed suicide. Like he walked into that room, there was 2 big boxes of albums, of record albums.
I totally didn't get that either. How did you figure that out?
So on Talking Dead, they were talking about how this was obviously one of his fans.
Okay, I admit I was cooking Brazilian fish stew during Talking Dead, so I was a little bit distracted.
Well, there was one of his posters on the wall, Half Moon poster, and live at such and such, whatever, one time only. And then I think there was like another like one sheet or something about Half Moon, and then of course there was the album for One Moon, and so it kind of. It snapped him back. I mean, already having been recognized by the Whisperer in the previous episode, I mean, he hasn't been recognized since Alpha recognized him. Go all the way back to the beginning. And she peeks under his ski mask at the time and was like, okay, and she recognized, and so nobody has recognized him. He's gone completely incognito until now, and that guy recognized him. Now his Alpha is dead, and he walks into this place where obviously his music meant something to this person, but they had even lost it, and like he's got a lot going on, and he ripped down the poster, and apparently Alpha was still talking to him. He was still listening to Alpha. So she was in a couple people's head this episode, but we didn't get the advantage of knowing what she's exactly saying to him. And so I think the concert was to draw in this big horde of walkers so that he could take them all to Alexandria and take out Alexandria like they did Hilltop. But the note that the person who committed suicide had left was these 2 eyes, one truth. And so for me, that was when he took the note back out, because he had taken the note. He took it back out and he read it, and then he looked over at Alpha's head and was like, okay, I get it. And that's when he ripped off half of his mask and knifed her in the head, and that's when we see the 2 eyes, the 2 halves of the different masks, half alpha, half beta. 2 eyes, one truth.
All right, you want my take?
Sure.
He did a little too much coke when he was a famous country artist. That's my take.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was either a sober living facility or some sort of mental health facility that she found him in, so he wasn't on steady ground to begin with.
Agreed. So. As the other housewife would say, agreed.
But I did feel like there was a lot that was probably left on the cutting room floor. I think the story was incomplete, or there was a lot that you had to put together on your own, or like I said, I would never have got that, it was like one of his fans who committed suicide in that hotel room, I wouldn't have got that without Talking Dead. So I'm really glad Talking Dead's back. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Those 2 build-ups that for me really went nowhere were the reason that this lost so much on the rewatch.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, the dioramas and Princess really sold this episode for me, but there was a lot of baggage.
Oh my God, we'll get to Princess.
All right, and on that note, let's get to our ugly, because I suspect we might both have the same ugly.
I doubt it.
Oh, okay.
So, my ugly was highly specific. My ugly was that little speech that Yumiko gave Ezekiel when he was having to put down his horse.
Right. Okay. We definitely don't have the same uglies.
So, again, we're going back to COVID, but I think in this time, what Yumiko said was very apropos
About
to
how
what
we
we
have all
are.
these plans, but they bear no resemblance to what we're actually doing.
Exactly. You don't know what lies ahead. For us, no one does. I had all these plans for my life. I clung to them so hard. And for what? No one cares what I have in mind for the future. I am here for what's possible, what none of us could predict or imagine.
I will tell you, I am eating like it's the apocalypse.
But I mean, think about where you were a year ago right now, and could you have predicted where you are now? It's just, you make all these plans for the future, and the world doesn't care about your plans. The world is going to unfold as it's going to. So,
And all I can say is I'm really glad I'm no longer working for that psycho hose beast because I can't imagine what it would be like working for her during the COVID pandemic.
oh man, it is like
That's where I
ripples on a
was a year
pond.
ago.
It's like ripples on a pond. Like you go, it's sliding doors. You go left instead of right, and your world changes either for the good or for the bad. You can't predict it. But yeah, I when I heard that Yumiko say that, it just really, really resonated with me and where we are at right now. So, I mean, ask me 3 weeks ago, and this would not have, it wouldn't have been a blip on my radar. But, it was just right time, right place, right speech.
So, and of course, because it is an apocalypse story and it's a viral, we think, apocalypse story, there is so much about The Walking Dead that is resonating. Like, I'm watching season 2 last night, and Herschel says to Glenn, as he hands Glenn his watch, immigrants built this country. Never forget that.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We are the Walking Dead.
We certainly are.
All right. So, what was your ugly?
So my ugly was totally Princess, and it was because she and the dioramas really rescued the episode for me. And her appearance and her intro were just perfect. I mean, she was literally ripped off of the pages of the comic book. The goofy pink, puffy sweater, the goggles, the machine gun. That was Princess. That was the way that they met Princess in the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
She was phenomenal. I loved it. I can hardly wait to see more of her.
So I just totally identify with her reaction when she saw them. She's like, "Oh my God, hi!"
Yeah.
That is exactly how I would react.
That was totally funny.
I would be completely taken off guard, and I would just be so happy to see people after a year. For as much as I am, I don't want to say an introvert. I'm kind of an ambivert. Like, I'm very good in social situations, but I prefer to be, tucked away in my house. But there is something to be said for, I mean, look at Lenny James. He did the episode where he was alone, where Morgan was alone for a long period of time, and
heap?
no, Clear.
Oh, yeah,
go-
that's what happened to me today, man. I was having my Clear episode.
You go a little buggy, and then all of a sudden it's people, and like my reaction would have been exactly the same as hers, and like a split second later I would have been, oh crap, what if these are bad guys? Like, oh my God, hi. Oh crap, I should have said that. Oh yeah, I'm very excited. Like I said, she's a long running character in the books, so I hope we see a lot.
The last time I got this excited about getting a comic book character was when we got Eugene, Rosita, and Abraham.
That's right.
I mean, Jesus was a comic book character, but I wasn't nearly as excited about him. I mean, he was great. Tom Paine was great. But in terms of ripped from the pages, Eugene, Rosita, and Abraham were ripped from the pages. Princess is ripped from the pages. So
So is it because they're good guys? Because I have a feeling that we kind of had the same amount of excitement and anticipation about Negan, but because he's a bad guy, it was more like a looming anticipation.
Oh, I didn't really think about that, but that's probably a pretty valid point.
Yeah, yeah. We're always thinking about the next bad guy.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are soundly into rotting potpourri, and if you can still smell it, you probably don't have COVID-19. So
I thought you were going to say you're standing too close.
I love that we got the jail cell backstory.
Yes.
I was happy to see that, and that was where I wrote down, Carol wasn't in the clearing. Maybe that's what's making it easier for her to make a deal with Negan.
That might factor into it.
She doesn't have that mental image of Glenn and Abraham getting their heads caved in. She's just heard stories.
Yeah, she's only seen Negan as the guy that takes half your stuff,
Exactly.
Yeah, he's not the guy that bashes in heads. He's just the guy that takes half your stuff. So, yeah, I could see her thinking that maybe it was all hype. Because, of course, 7 years later, he's the guy that, shovels the crap and grows the tomatoes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this was actually going to be my ugly until the Yumiko speech. I kind of struggled with it because it happened after the Yumiko speech. So everything in the episode happens, and then Daryl and Negan have their little, guys chat, and then we see Daryl opening the gate for Carol, and I'm like, so we're all just going to go out back to Alexandria and chill? Where's Connie? Like, nobody's looking for Connie. Like, Magna's back, but everyone's like, oh yeah, Connie should just be able to find her way back. Like,
and they're are they giving her up for dead, or are things just so crazy because of everything that happened with Hilltop falling? I don't know.
I kind of think that because Daryl was getting so close to her that as soon as the whole, okay, Alpha's dead, Negan's not a terrible guy, like, okay, let's go find Connie. I would have thought, like, we're not stopping at Hilltop. I will just shoot a squirrel on the way and eat it raw. Let's go find Connie. Like, what? I'm totally at a loss. Like, why? Yeah.
So, are we going to see Connie in the next episode, or is it going to be episode 16 yet to be determined before we see her again?
So from the advertisements, I don't see that we see Connie. I think that we're left. I think that might have been up as part of episode 16.
And what about Maggie?
Yeah, we were supposed to have Maggie this season, right?
And what about Lydia?
Oh, you haven't watched the advertisements for next episode.
No, I did not. So there must be some stuff about Lydia. Okay.
There totally is. But yeah, I'm just like, okay, it was super nice to see Heath last episode in kind of a flashback, but where the heck is Connie?
All right.
So speaking of last episode,
okay, go ahead.
I got admonished that we did not mention that in the scene where Michonne kind of takes Negan's place when everyone's kneeling and we're about to lose Glenn and Abraham.
Yes.
The person who was in Michonne's place kneeling was Dwight.
Oh, no, I didn't realize that. I completely missed that.
So, sliding doors, had Michonne become a savior, Dwight would have been an Alexandrian.
Interesting.
Crazy, right?
Very good catch on the part of the other half.
Yep.
So,
all right, so what you got?
I just want to say that, first of all, I think Rosita is bleeding internally and she's going to die because that bruise is horrific.
Yeah,
and
she just gave...
Well, she fairly recently gave birth. and that
Okay.
Alex the medic is MIA. Go figure. And that Eugene's speech was classic Eugene.
What's funny is I was so preoccupied with being on the other side of his speech that I totally, I missed it really, because I was thinking as an Alexandrian, like, how could you be conversing with a stranger and not be telling anybody? Are we really going to do this again? Like, have we not learned our lesson? Like, I was on the other side of it. Like, I think that I know what happens. I mean, the show can go in any direction, but like, I saw it from the Alexandrian sides going, are you serious?
I don't know. I just loved it because it was classic Eugene.
It is.
All right. Then I will say, and this is the feedback that I gave to Aim for the Head, I felt like this whole episode was one long goodbye to Ezekiel. So Jerry's goodbye to Ezekiel was really all of our goodbyes. I'm going to miss you.
Oh.
And then the whole thing about him almost getting taken out when he was taking out the walkers because he was so short of breath.
Right.
And then his horse dying was just totally telegraphing that Ezekiel is dying next episode.
So the next episode is titled The Tower.
And he is one of the featured guests on Talking Dead next week. So
in the comics, there is a fairly big character death in the tower.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I won't say who it is in the books, but it has been talked about that character will not die in the show. And that could manner.
Be Ezekiel's death.
Mm-hmm. Oh. So, yeah, there was a, you know how they do all of the scenes from season 10, like in the trailer that they released before season 10.
Right.
There is a shot that's basically straight out of the books, and it's the tower death, and you absolutely cannot make out, like, any sort of body. But I mean, there's so much blood there that it's like somebody obviously was ripped to shreds. There's nothing left.
Okay, all I have to say is that long live the king. I'm going to miss Ezekiel and Kari Payton so much.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know that that's going to happen, but this was supposed to be the tower was supposed to be the second to the last episode, and the second to the last episode has traditionally been the one where they do the big character death for the season. Right?
I totally think we're losing Ezekiel. They completely telegraphed it.
I'm right there with you. I'm definitely right there with you. It's either Ezekiel or Aaron.
We haven't seen Aaron at all, although that's a fair bet. He could potentially end up with that death. But
I've been thinking Aaron's going to die since Jesus died.
But I'm thinking more that it's probably going to be Zeke.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on borrowed time.
Yeah,
we know that. So.
And I still go with the theory of he's going to have the big self-sacrificing death.
In the book, it wasn't the death that's in the tower wasn't really self-sacrificing. Beta basically murders him.
But they could rework it so that Ezekiel has a self-sacrificing death and dies that way.
Absolutely. Yep. It would be very easily done. Yeah.
Oh, so another comic book thing that I wanted to say, and this is a comic book spoiler for anybody who still hasn't read them and intends to, but in the comic books, Michonne is an attorney. Well, Yumiko is an attorney. And in the comic books, Michonne has a fairly big arc in the Commonwealth as an attorney. And here we see Yumiko getting sent off by Magna to kind of have a new start. I am theorizing that Yumiko is getting Michonne's storyline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We always thought that she was going to get Maggie's storyline, but Maggie's coming back, so.
Yeah, no, I totally think she's getting Michonne's storyline.
That's a really good thought. Interesting.
All right, what else you got?
So, Negan had a lot of really great lines this episode, like he always does. But I love when Daryl's like, "You should just shoot me now." And Negan's like, "Don't threaten me with a good time."
Well, and I thought it was really interesting that once again, Negan has Daryl on his knees in a clearing.
Yeah. And he admitted he liked it.
Mm-hmm.
But he did say something that I think really resonated with Daryl this episode. And I think it was at like right before their little heart-to-heart on the log.
Mm-hmm.
He said the lone wolves aren't thinking about the pack.
All right. Did that totally bring you into COVID-19 thinking? Because it did me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it is completely, Carol does that. She goes, and Daryl's been guilty of it before too. I think just about everyone has at one time or another, but I think it's interesting that Negan went there, that he's the one that's thinking like Rick, So I thought that was cool. And then their little talk on the log I also really liked. You don't kill people that don't deserve it, and you don't kill kids. And Daryl was like, "Is that supposed to make me like you?" No. Good. But what about my winning personality?
And so I will tell you that moment together totally made me think of Rick and Daryl after the Claimers, and Rick calling Daryl his brother.
Yeah.
That's completely what it made me think of.
I have to say that I kind of liked it. I
did too.
I really hate that I like Negan, but I like Negan.
Well, like Paul Tassi said, he's a little more complex than Rick. Andy Lincoln was amazing. We had tremendous range of emotion and tremendous performance with Andy Lincoln, but there's something about Negan that has become more and more interesting as time goes on.
So, having said all that, it's great that Negan will maybe take over Rick's storyline, and him and Daryl will somehow kind of come to a good place. I don't say that they're going to be buds, but, what is Maggie going to think? Maggie's coming back.
I still think we may end up with the Negan comic book storyline, which is where Negan goes off on his own.
Yeah, I could see how that they could end his storyline that way, but I don't know.
Okay, we're an hour and 33 in, and I just finished my margarita.
Yeah, I've been nursing my wine.
All right, I will say, Beta has a great voice. Ryan Hurst has a great voice. The lyrics were atrocious. Actually have managed to have closed captioning for the last several episodes, which has made it much more easy to follow. Oh my god, the lyrics were so bad. The worst country music ever.
Nope. So if you want a really, really good voice and melody and terrible lyrics, The Tiger King. I'm not even joking.
You didn't say anything about The Tiger King, by the way.
What was I going to say about him?
I don't know. I was going to ask you your opinion about it.
Oh, man. That show, it has got everything. It's unbelievable. Truth is stranger than fiction. Like, I encourage everybody to go binge The Tiger King.
I think I will give in at some point and watch it.
It's unbelievable. And there's a great meme, and I have posted it to what if
I think you shared it with me and the other housewife. I think you should probably post it to biters.
Yeah, the apocalypse we wanted, and it's King Ezekiel and Shiva, and the apocalypse we got, and it's the Tiger King guy in a throne, just totally Florida manning it, and he's got a tiger next to him, and that's the apocalypse we got.
I think you should totally post it.
I will totally post it. Hopefully you have all watched The Tiger King and will get the meme, or at least know of him, because I actually didn't know that I knew of him before this, and like watching the show, I'm like, huh, okay. And Don Young is our state representative, is pictured in the show holding a baby tiger.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
Okay, that madman was literally giving a speech 2 weeks ago at a local senior center joking about the coronavirus. Points to him, he has since backtracked.
Yes.
Which is pretty hard for Don Young to eat crow. I hope it tasted good.
If that does not make Dianne watch this, nothing will.
Oh, I will. It's totally right up the Murderino Avenue.
It is. So, I really don't have much more than that.
Let me see. What else do I have? Because I did write a little bit more. I'm trying to see if there's anything that we have not covered. So again, I really feel like Ezekiel's horse, the death of Ezekiel's horse, was totally telegraphing Ezekiel's death.
Oh, speaking of which, no, I mean, you've owned horses. Like, could you really? I mean, I guess it was kind of like maybe where the spine of the horse and the neck meets the head. Like,
he slit its throat. That's
okay.
That's not an uncommon way to put a horse down if you don't have any of the resources.
Right.
Yeah, he slit its throat.
Yep.
And all I can think is either it was really old and he pushed it too hard, or he just pushed it too hard. But it was pretty awful. I'm glad I wasn't in his shoes.
It looked like it had a big chunk missing from one of its shoulders, like a walker took a chunk out of it.
Did the walker get it? Okay, maybe that. Okay, I missed that. I just caught the horse in distress, and then Ezekiel going and saying it doesn't have to hurt anymore, and I was like, oh my god, it's somebody talking to Ezekiel.
I was just thinking the other night, I was like, I reserve all of my tears for ASPCA commercials, but that was really close.
Yeah.
Okay,
now but I was like, go ahead.
I was like, can you really? Because I thought he shoved a knife into the back of the horse's head.
No.
But no, slitting the throat, okay.
Yeah, he totally slit its throat and let it bleed out.
Okay, I will go with that.
So now I don't have anything else except you can tell the other half that we talked for an hour and 40 minutes. Yes, in fact, we are capable of doing that, about an hour-long show.
Well, because half of it was COVID.
Right. And like what I was baking and what you were doing when you were leaving work. I don't think you said that on the podcast, did you? Like what you said to the people in the elevator when you were leaving work? Oh my God. That was hilarious. You have to share that with the podcast folks before we go out.
So I actually got, not forcefully, but, quarantined because the other half was exposed to somebody that tested positive for COVID. And so he got sent home because we live together and commute together and we work in the same building. I, of course, got quarantined at the same time. I was not exposed to that person, but I was like third-hand cousin exposed. So when I got the call, I immediately started shutting down my computer. We kind of prepped for this at work. We all have virtual private networks, and we can remote desktop into our computers. And most of my work is done. I can do 90% of my work, just from a laptop. Well, I took my desktop And we have plenty of monitors at home because the other half is a big techie. So I unplugged all my stuff and gathered all my things and pieced out my boss, see you in 2 weeks. And I was carrying my desktop in my arms, and I went down the elevator. And you know how people have that habit of when they're waiting for the elevator, they try and get into the elevator that you are trying to get out of, and it's very frustrating. I looked at both of them and I was like, I am being forcefully quarantined. Back up. There was no politeness. It was just like, stop trying to get into the elevator when I am trying to get out, or I will cough on you, which I wouldn't have, by the way. It was just so frustrating. And I was just like, I have an excuse. Stay 6 feet back.
Oh, so. Related PSA, not that I think any of our biters would do this, but if you see somebody doing this, call them out. I have actually read and heard stories firsthand from people who have been out in the public in scrubs who are being verbally abused by people because they're in scrubs and they shouldn't be out because they're potentially infectious and potentially infecting other people. I've actually had a secondhand account of someone's friend being spat upon because she did not have the ability to offer a COVID-19 test to a patient.
Which is assault.
I do want to say that exactly. So that is assault. If you spit on a healthcare worker, if you blow boogers at a healthcare worker, if you do anything worse than that, it is assault and we will press charges. As far as verbally abusing healthcare workers who are out in public, don't. They're literally on the front lines for you.
Yep.
If you don't have anything nice to say, give them 6 feet of space. If you have something nice to say, give them 6 feet of space and tell them how much you appreciate what they're doing for you, because they are.
They're basically soldiers at this point.
They are.
And they deserve your respect.
Absolutely.
The thing that's been getting on my nerves is, even though we're the capital city, we're a very small town. We have 5 confirmed positive cases in Juneau as of now, and not everyone. There are a bunch of people that get on our community pages, and they want names and pictures of these people. They think that HIPAA is BS, and these people should be named and pictures so that you know if you had come into contact with them. Well, our healthcare workers are doing major back, they're going back with these people. They're going and figuring out where they have been in the past 2 weeks via
contact investigation.
Yes.
Yeah.
The calendars, their phones, appointments, things like that, places that they frequent. And so you will be contacted if they think that you have come into contact with somebody, who is infected. And at this point, just assume that everyone has it, that you will probably get it, and treat everyone accordingly. Like, just wash your hands, don't touch your face, use hand sanitizer, the whole thing. Socially, isolate yourself, 6 feet of space, just do everything that we've been doing, and don't give people grief, because I normally do not comment. I finally jumped on one and I was like, look, just do all this stuff. This person is probably terrified to have the virus itself, let alone being publicly outed. Like, leave it alone. You don't need to name and shame these people. If you have come into contact with them, you might get sick, you might not. Just wash your hands, and even if you did come in contact with them, you can't even say that it was them that gave it to you. You could have touched a doorknob that somebody else had touched, and yeah. So.
Okay, so I have a couple of things to say to that. First of all, everything I needed to know about surviving apocalypse, I learned from The Walking Dead. We are all infected.
We are all infected.
Right? And
yeah.
I also want to share that I listened to an episode of Epidemic with Dr. Celine Gounder and Ron Klain. And they talked specifically about discrimination against people who are COVID-19 positive and how we're probably going to be seeing some legal repercussions in relationship to some of those discrimination cases that are happening. So I would encourage people to tread very carefully.
Yeah.
It's not okay to
definitely
discriminate against someone because of an illness that they've had.
Well, and I mean, it's not okay to, I forget what I posted, but I was basically like, small towns like this have the nasty habit of making people pariahs, and this person does not need the pitchfork and torch brigade coming after them.
Exactly.
So be nice to each other, for God's sake. If nothing else, be nice.
Because it could be you next.
Yeah.
And it probably will be.
Yep. It's an illness. Right. We're all going to get it. We're all infected. Some people are going to have a worse time than others.
We started out where we began. Or we ended where we began.
Exactly. Hopefully next week is a little better. As far as COVID-19, it is the season finale of The Walking Dead. It shouldn't be, but it is.
And I think after we have Night of the Comic, The Serpent and the Rainbow, and what else?
Night of the Comet?
I said Night of the Comet.
I swear to God, you said comic.
No, I said Night of the Comet.
Okay.
I'm not that drunk.
What was the other show we were talking about?
The Serpent and the Rainbow. And then what else did we say we were going to do? We said it on this episode. Oh my God.
We did.
That's bad. Go back and listen and let me know.
Oh man. It is definitely double margarita, full bottle of wine night.
It is, and I still have stuff to do before I go to bed.
Luckily, I don't have to get up for work tomorrow. I mean, I do have to get up for work tomorrow, but I don't got to shower. I don't got to change my clothes. I don't got to do my hair. I don't got to do my makeup. I have no commute than to my kitchen table. I kind of like this work from home thing.
So tomorrow's my first day back at work, and I'm prepared for disorganized chaos.
I will be so interested to hear about that.
Yeah, say a prayer for me to whomever.
Yep. All right, everybody. That's it for this week. Until next week, just remember, take it one dead day at a time.
At a time.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. We haven't flooded that in a long time.
Have a good week, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.